Max Verstappen is on another level, Enu, and I want to have a chat about the Dutchman and Red Bull. By the way, I will mention I do in this video reference quite a few tweets by Daniel Vellante. Go follow him on Twitter if you don't already, and you have Twitter. He posts a lot of stats and such, and I think he's worth a follow. And of course, part of Verstappen being so insanely good, Enu, does come down to the car he has and the cars he's had underneath him, and also the team he has around him, because let's be fair, he's had some damn good cars the last few years, because Red Bull finally got a title contending worthy car in the last year, the last reg set, and then they hit the ground running despite a couple of early teething issues with this reg set. You gonna see Red Bull screwing up their strategies. It's rare you see them effing up their pit stops. I'll touch on the pit stops again later though. And generally, despite the mess that went on / is going on off track behind the scenes with that whole Horner situation that went on, and also Toto being obsessed with trying to get Verstappen into his car, on track Red Bull is running like a well-oiled machine. And when the team is running like a well-oiled machine on track, and so is the driver, and the driver is doing his part as well, that's not easy to beat. And of course the driver does still play a part of it as well, because at the end of the day, on the track, it's up to the driver to get the best out of the car that they can. And Verstappen does, weekend in, weekend out. He always seems to get the maximum he can out of the car. He's normally quite a ways ahead of Checo as well, who has the exact same machinery as him, which says a lot for who the more talented Red Bull driver is. How much Red Bull gauge the car towards Max or not aside, I do kind of feel like Max and Checo are a good example of the driver can make the difference. Driver talent does make a difference, which I'm sure we all know. Like, I'm not shitting on Checo or anything, because he has been having a pretty good season so far, and right now I will be surprised if he does not keep his seat for 2025, but he is still not able to challenge Max. No one is able to, actually, so that's not just a Checo problem, that's an everyone problem. No one's able to challenge him. In fact, his only rivalry really is with himself, and trying to improve himself and his performances and do better next time than he did this time, as pointed out in this tweet from Daniel, which is where I got the inspiration for the title of this video from. I mean, for God's sake, in the last race in China, Verstappen was so far ahead of everybody else, he was piss-arsing about drifting through the final corner on the last lap, in a race where every single lap, excluding, you know, in and out laps and safety car or VSC laps, Max was quicker than the other three in the top four, apparently, with his average pace after the safety cars had stopped coming out was over half a second quicker than Norris with the second best pace. What we saw for Verstappen in China was just ominous. He didn't lead every lap of the sprint, nor did he get pole there, but it can still be argued that the weekend was perhaps the most dominant we've ever seen him. I mean, for God's sake, he pulled out a 13-second gap in 10 laps in the sprint, and who knows by how much he would have won the Grand Prix itself by if there hadn't been safety cars. It's like every time we think Verstappen is like, God, there's no way he can top that, there's no way he can possibly get better, he somehow manages to get even better and be even more dominant. And honestly, that kind of is down to mentality, and his mentality that he's always competing with himself. And this is what he said on that topic after the Chinese Grand Prix. Nobody is perfect, but I had a good weekend. Would if I'm my own adversary? Yes, but the point is that I always have a competition with myself. That's how I grew up, and that's what my father always taught me. You always have to look at yourself and what you have to do better. So it's not like when I'm in my head I think of unicorns. Every time I try to improve and think about what I can do better, how I can improve my attitude. Clearly I look at the times and the advantage I have, but I want to improve myself. That's why even yesterday in the sprint I wasn't happy with the car despite having a good advantage. So we made some changes to try to be faster, and today I was even more. This makes my life easier. Yet the Aramco power rankings still won't give the man a 10. Honestly, these power rankings are such rubbish. He didn't even get 10 after Bahrain, where he got a grand slam. It was another 9.6. Side note on this, Norris had a great race. He did great to get that sprint pole lap, but I still don't think his weekend was a 9.8. A 9 at best, because, come on, he did channel his inner Tia McMurdoch at the start of the sprint and bottled it in the span of 3 corners. Sorry, Lando fans, but I mean, come on, he did bottle the start of the sprint. And okay, to be fair to Tia McMurdoch, even though he can be prone to bottling, I don't think I've ever seen him bottle away a pole start in the opening 3 corners of a race. But back to Max. He's won every race he's finished since Japan last year, and it's gonna take some serious upgrades for the other teams, I think, to stop that run from continuing, because while they can be close in qualifying, when Verstappen doesn't adjust pull 2/10 of seemingly absolutely nowhere, in race trim he is kinda unstoppably new. He always seems to pull something out, and I will be very shocked if he does not win this weekend in Miami for his third straight win in the Sunshine State. Because, well, his mentality. He's always trying to do better than he did before, go quicker than he did before. And when you have that mentality with just the talent he has, and also the car and the team he has, that's a pretty formidable combo. And on the topic of race wins, Verstappen has raced at 32 different circuits throughout his time in F1. You can see the list on screen now. And he has stood on the podium at every single one of them except Mugello, which F1 only went to once in 2020 as a stopgap during the pandemic, and also to celebrate Ferrari's 1000th race. But Verstappen was out on the opening lap there that afternoon. And of the 32 tracks he's raced at, he has stood on the top step of the podium at 26 of them, only failing to take a win at Singapore, the Nürburgring, Portimao, Russia, Turkey, and of course the aforementioned Mugello. These win stats get a little crazier when I bring up this tweet from Daniel Vellante, where he rightly points out that Max has won at 24 of the 25 tracks F1 has raced at since 2022. The only one he's missing being Singapore. So ergo that means he's also won at every single track on this year's calendar except Singapore. A couple more stats, courtesy of Daniel Vellante again. Verstappen has won the last 11 races in North America, and it's looking likely that he'll extend that to 12 on Sunday. As I said, I will be surprised if he doesn't. Not to mention, it seems that Miami will mark over 1,600 days since the guy last lost a race in North America, which was the 2019 US Grand Prix, if I'm not mistaken, where he finished third behind the two Mercedes. Also, apparently, if Verstappen wins this weekend's Miami Grand Prix, he will pass Lewis Hamilton's percentage win rate. He's currently tied with the Brit on 30.56%. Also, away from race wins, another slightly crazy stat about Max Verstappen. The last time he took the checkered flag in a race outside the top 10 was the 2016 Belgian Grand Prix, where he finished 11th. Since the 2016 Italian Grand Prix, he has either finished in the points or retired. That is insane. Also, finally, can I take a moment to throw some praise the way the Red Bull pit crew? I said I'd come back to them. They've had 9 of the 10 fastest pit stops so far this season, and apparently they could have done about 25 individual pit stops in the Chinese Grand Prix before Sauber finished Valtteri's 52-second pit stop from Bahrain. That fact simultaneously makes Red Bull look amazing in China, and also makes Sauber look very, very bad in Bahrain. Seriously, the Red Bull pit crew were on fire in China. In a good way. Not in a bad way. It's like they saw their F1 posted about Mercedes' amazing double stack there in 2019 and just went, you think that was amazing? Watch this! Overall, this combo of Max and Red Bull, it is just insane, really. I mean, his period of dominance is... It is crazy. Because, if you look at other periods, like, say, the Schumacher dominance, and, Juan Pablo Montoya was giving him a hard time sometimes. Mika Hakkinen was giving him headaches before he then went on his sabbatical that he never came off of. You had Kimi Räikkönen able to give him a hard time sometimes, and then came Alonso, who just ended the domination streak altogether. And then looking ahead to the Vettel domination, then, in the first year of his first title year, then, Weber and Alonso was there. Alonso stayed as a threat in 2012. Really, his entire time at Ferrari, he was kind of thereabouts, giving him a bit of a hard time. There was a race or two in 2013 where the Lotuses were able to give Vettel a headache. The McLarens on their day were able to give him a bit of a headache. In the Hamilton dominance, then of course there was Rosberg to begin with, and then Vettel was giving him a hard time, and then Bottas on his day when he wanted to, he could give him a hard time. The Ferraris being able to give him a bit of a hard time continued for a few summertimes in 2019, and then came along Verstappen in 2021, and then Verstappen, he's just... Of course, he had Leclerc challenging him in the first half of 2022, but since the summer break of 2022, he's just been... No one's been able to really properly challenge him, really. As I said, the only times where he's been beaten in a race since summer 2022 is when he's been kind of out of it, really. Brazil 2022, when... that was just a mess, to be honest. Singapore 2023, which was also just a bit of a mess, and then Australia this year, where his brakes gave out. Like, no one is completely unbeatable. Everyone can be beaten. But when you have the combo of Red Bull, which is running like a well-oiled machine, and Verstappen with the talent he has and the mentality, mindset he has, that is a pretty formidable combination. But what do you think, Verstappen and Red Bull? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.